When you hear career in asset management, what comes to mind? Portfolio managers, traders, maybe sales roles? Well, we're about to unveil a hidden world within finance. Did you know there are hundreds of roles within asset management? And guess what? One of them could be the perfect fit for your career aspirations. Welcome to episode 48 of the Career Discovery Podcast, the show that's all about helping you broaden your career horizons, discover your professional potential, and empower your career journey. This week, we're excited to introduce you to Jim, a seasoned sales director in the UK's recruitment industry. But rather than focus on Jim's journey today, we are going to focus on the industry that is asset management operations. Jim's expertise shines in asset management operations, and he's here to unravel the secrets, insights, and opportunities within this dynamic sector. Jim shares insights on the industry, career considerations, opportunities and preparation, and future trends. We also explore themes like job search strategies, job application insights, career development, learning and progress, and workplace culture. So whether you're considering a career in asset management operations or simply seeking inspiration for your professional journey, stay tuned. Jim opens the door to a world of opportunities that you might not have known existed. Subscribe now to join us every week for fresh episodes, Q&A sessions, and much, much more. And if you're craving extra inspiration or insights, check out our extensive back catalogue of inspiring conversations. Now, let's jump into this enlightening conversation with Jim. Jim, hello, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, no problem. Nice to see you.
It's really nice to see you too. Okay, how about we get started? Tell us who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for.
Cool. Right. So my name's Jim Gervais-Brazier. I am a sales director for Adidas Consulting, which is a recruitment company into financial services. I specialise in operations, middle office, and distribution roles. So something a bit different to the normal, or what people would expect getting into when they get into financial services. I've been doing this for, I worked it out, just over 18 years. So a long old time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And Jim, this is a podcast, so I'm wondering if you enjoy podcasts, and if so, what do you enjoy?
I absolutely love podcasts. I listen to them all the time. So I love a bit of true crime. So I love Case File. I'm hugely into my music. So I love the Rock on Tours podcast, which with Guy Pratt, what's his name, out of Spandau Ballet. I listen to that one a lot.
Yeah.
Mainly crime stuff. I like the food ones. I love the off menu one, the James Acaster one. That's really good as well. But yeah, so a big fan of podcasts and sort of audiobooks and audible things generally. Not as much as I should from a work perspective. Much more sort of personal perspective. But yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it's amazing to think that this genre didn't really exist 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. You actually read or watch everything you were going to do. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's really good for people with different learning styles. My friend was telling me the other day about her daughter who's just started sixth form. And as part of that, I suppose not the application, but the kind of onboarding process, they do like a test with tons of questions. And at the end of it tells you how you learn best. And she's an audio learner. And so they say, feel free to record lessons and so on. I just think that's amazing, isn't it? Because it certainly wasn't like that when we were at school.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's crazy because I think I may well be one of those as well, because I use it all the time. I mean, whenever if I'm walking to the station, on the train, going for a run in the morning, if my wife and I are cleaning around the house or doing whatever, she'll have her podcast on, I'll have mine on down. We use them all the time. It's amazing how the world's changed. And the fact that pretty much anybody who is passionate or wants to do this can do it without the old barriers of being able to be in the media to get your word out. So yeah, it's great.
All right. Now, Jim, we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to talk about asset management operations, the industry that
We
is.
are.
But I do want to touch on the question I often like to ask my guests, which is, what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were at school?
Oh, well, obviously, I wanted to be a rock star. That was one of the first things that I wanted to be, and pursued that throughout my career alongside recruitment. I also wanted to be a music journalist. There was many things I wanted to be, but seeing as I didn't do particularly well in my A levels, I ended up doing a degree in tourism management, falling into and Joe, you know me well, falling into a role which required a lot of attention to detail, which was writing ski brochures. And as you know, my attention to detail has never been my strongest of points. So I eventually worked my way out of the travel industry. I went to a travel industry recruitment company to get a job for me, and they said, "You know what, you'd be good at recruitment," and that was 2003. So yeah, I've been doing it ever since. So yeah, so what I wanted to do is completely different to what I have ended up doing. But a lot of my thoughts on that is people say something along the lines of if you love your job, you never have to do a day's work. I
Yeah,
kind of agree with that, but I also quite like the fact that what I do outside of work is completely separate. So
yeah,
separating the two. So yeah,
yeah.
sorry, went off on one a bit there. There we go.
No, it's fine. And of course, and I think that's the great thing, isn't it? You're showing us here that you've continued your passion for rock and
Yeah,
music,
absolutely.
and but it didn't have to be your work. It was your passion, your hobby on the side, which is just as fulfilling.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely cost more money than it's made me over the years, but I do love it, and it's really important, in my opinion, to have some kind of line drawn under work. You know, because I'm, as you
Yeah,
know as well, and I know you are too. You can't put it down, and it's difficult to put work down. So you just
yeah,
you have to do something else to put it down.
yeah, yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, Jim, asset management operations. Perhaps you could start by sharing with us what is the industry of asset management and where does operations fit into that industry?
But very simply, and this is how I always sort of train my juniors to understand, is if you've got some money, you're either a person or an institution. And what you do with that money is you can either put it in a bank where it will be saved at a certain rate of interest and lent out to other people, but you will only ever get a certain return, or you can invest in an asset management company. So um, basically, if you're an institution, you invest in the company's money. If you're an individual investor, you're investing your own money. And there's various different ways, many complicated, many simple, on how businesses go about investing this money. Um, the and that's the difference. So a bank, you put the money in there, they lend the money out. You know what you've got coming back every month. You know
Yeah,
your money's safe. With an asset manager, there is more risk involved. So if you're investing in a long only equity asset management company, the money that you put in will pretty much follow the equity market and go up and down with that. Then
yeah,
you can obviously invest in more complicated companies like hedge funds, which will short sell and make money when the market's going down. The best thing to do with that, I would strongly suggest that people watch The Big Short. That explains it a lot better than I
mm,
can, but it's a really, really interesting film to see. Um, and that's the investment management industry. Now,
yeah,
people can invest in fixed income, which is debt. People can invest in equities, which is the stock market, basically. Um, Derivative product, which is complicated things on the edges of that, and also people can invest in. There's various other what they call real assets, so that's real estate, properties, houses, developments, and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
there are many aspects to it.
yeah. Okay, brilliant. Where does operations fit into that?
Right, this is the one that's one of the main reasons that I'm here, because people don't really know this.
Yeah,
They'll come out of university thinking, I want to work in financial services, I want to be an investment banker, I want to be a portfolio manager, I want to be a client relations manager. Right, that side of it will come to those who are lucky and work hard and want to do that side of things. It's operations is quite simply the thing that makes everything work. Okay. Without that, you would have no industry. So basically, from the process of onboarding clients, which is obviously essential for an asset management company to have clients, from onboarding clients through to making the processes work. So when people trade, obviously they don't just go, right, okay, this is a pen, this is a guitar plectrum, let's just swap them. Yeah, there's so much more that goes into it. So basically, trades have to settle. So you have to settle trades across, in some cases, different countries, all kinds of different areas, which can be complex and some easier than others. Obviously, there's compliance that has to go into it. So it's not just a case of, again, swapping the two things over. You've got to make sure that client A owns the pen, client B owns the plectrum, and it has to be confirmed before the trades can go across. Obviously, people want to know how their investments are doing. So you need to do valuations. So net asset valuations, which is a valuation of what the assets are, which is known across the industry as net. Then that can be done weekly, it can be done daily, it can be done monthly. It really depends on how the firms run. But it's absolutely vital that your operations team are constantly working things out and moving things forward. Certain firms, things will be a lot more straightforward. The larger firms, for example, your bigger banks, your larger asset managers will have specific teams doing one thing. So you'll have a team that does all of the settlements. You'll have a team that does all of the fund accounting and the NAV. You'll have a team that does all of the corporate actions. And they'll be separated into areas. Now, the smaller the firm is, the more likely they'll have an operations analyst or operations associate position where where the person will be dealing with all of those different things. And it's really up to you. It's, do you want to work for a large corporate where, you're not going to get as much exposure straight away, but the career path may be slightly more defined. I'll go on to career path in the industry later, but that may be more defined. Or a smaller firm where the structure's flatter, but you're going to see a lot more straight away. You might have to do more menial tasks, but you may also end up having to do more exciting tasks. So
Okay,
so that,
thank you.
In a nutshell, it's all of that.
Okay, brilliant. And actually, I just want to pick up on something, Jim. So I just think it might be handy if we can clear up banks, because obviously some banks have asset management arms, which differs from the banks you were talking about in the original example, right?
Yes, absolutely. So you've got large investment banks, which are the ones you would have heard of, the Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, that kind of thing, massive American firms. And a lot of them will have their own asset management companies attached to it. So, for example, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure why that is. I'm guessing market coverage. And I'm guessing these people have got so much money coming through the businesses, they want to offer more products to more people. So they want to offer them pension products, pension products are the most common retail product that you or I or anyone in work by law now has to deal with throughout their lives. So you'll see companies, say for example, JP Morgan have got a large asset management division. A lot of that based over in the UK as well. But then you've got your massive asset managers, standalone asset managers that aren't banks, like Vanguard, Janus Henderson, places like that. So they're loosely sort of described as buy side for asset management companies and sell side for banking products.
All right, that's really helpful. Thank you. And I think the bank in the original example was perhaps a retail bank where you or I put our money for savings.
Exactly that. So it's the same in asset management. So you've got retail and you've got institutional. It's exactly the same with investment banks and retail banks. So just to clarify that, your Metro Bank, NatWest, HSBC on the high street where you and I have got our mortgages and our savings and loans and whatever else is retail.
Yeah.
And then your investment banks, your Goldman Sachs and that kind of stuff, the companies will shove their money into is institutional. And it's exactly the same for asset management. Asset managers, the retail side of stuff is private wealth management, and that would be for people, normal people. Then you've got your HNW, which are your high net worth people. Then your UHNW, which is the ultra high net worth people. Now, I'm not sure exactly where the line's drawn between high net worth and ultra high net worth, but I'm sure I can find out for another time for you. But yeah, so that's the size of it. So you or I can go and invest our money on the retail side of an asset management company, whatever.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks, Jim. And actually, just staying on, I guess, the overall industry of asset management for the moment, can you just give us a sense of the size of this industry and also the concentration? You know, where are these companies located?
No problem. Well, the industry is vast. To give you an idea, in my small world of asset management that I deal with, I recruit for around about 85 or 90 different firms. Yeah.
Yeah.
As to how many there actually are in London, it's really hard to tell because you have three different areas really. As I say, we're talking, but you've got your large asset managers, your Vanguards of this world, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You've got your hedge funds or your smaller asset managers, which can literally be 2 or 3 people in a room, investing money with some crazy strategies, but there's a lot of high risk where they can make a lot of money. And the other side of the stuff that we really never know about is family offices. A family office is literally an office that manages a wealthy family's money. So so those are the 3 areas, and they're mainly concentrated. You'll find that most asset management firms, particularly the smaller ones, are based in the West End, so they're based near Green Park and around and about. And some of the larger asset managers are based in the city. There are more popping up around Victoria Way at the moment. We are seeing that some asset management companies are outsourcing areas of the business, areas of the operations area and client services are being sent to Edinburgh, Glasgow, Manchester, Dublin, Bournemouth. The idea, I'm assuming, and in some cases overseas, Poland, India, the idea I'm assuming is to save money, but that's kind of where it is. But there will always be a base for investment management and asset management in London, as far as I'm concerned. It really is probably the biggest hotspot of places to go. If you're looking to work in that area.
Yeah. And so similarly in other countries, you might find, New York has a high concentration, Berlin, Paris, Milan, and so on.
Absolutely. But you'll also find in the States that specific asset managers have got cities that they're aligned to. I mean, I'm trying to think. You got PIMCO. I can't think of where they're associated. I think it might be Baltimore. Certain companies will have. Janus Henderson have got a massive office in Denver. And what you'll tend to find is that everybody who works in finance works at that one specific asset manager. So they've almost got towns that are built around it, like frontier towns in the past. So but here the main hub is definitely London.
Yeah. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay, so I'm curious, Jim, about the inclusiveness of this industry.
Yep. Right. Okay. This is something that everybody is working. Okay. Us particularly, at Dedham, have got we're massively focused on diversity. We always attempt to provide a diverse shortlist. Inclusion, it's an industry that has historically been very, very sort of male orientated and very sort of seen as fairly cutthroat. That's definitely changing. What we really need is more diverse people wanting to work on the operations side. It's crazy. You would have known this from the years that you've worked in this, that if you're looking for a diverse shortlist in compliance, risk or operations, it's really hard. It's really hard to find. So we really want to open this industry up to a more diverse palette of people. Inclusion wise, you tend to need some kind of mathematical, science-based, financial services or accounting-based degree. I'm not saying you can't get in without it, but you'll find it more difficult. Yeah. So also not so concerned about degree marks. I mean, obviously people with a first class degree will generally find it easier to get into things than someone with a third, but it's not as important in this industry, and it's getting less and less so, which is good, because I always say to people, someone with a first class degree from Cambridge and 4 A's at A-level is going to have 30 different job offers. Someone with like myself with a 2-2 from Plymouth, maybe not quite as, but there's no reason why I couldn't do as good a job as the other person, and the chances are I'm going to be more driven to do so because I've got less opportunity. So the answer is it's getting more inclusive, and we're pleased about it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You've given us a bit of a flavour of the types of roles that sit within asset management operations, but I'm wondering if you could, really just tell us what those main departments are within a typical asset management operations function.
No problem. Okay, so your client operations are the people that would deal with the onboarding of clients.
Yeah.
The what's called KYC, which is the know your client, to make sure that the client's coming on with legitimate assets and all that kind of thing. And honestly, just the physical aspect of onboarding those clients onto the internal systems, which is often known as static data, CRMs, client relationship management systems, that kind of thing. So that's client operations. Then you've got your trade support operations, and that is the function that looks directly after, well, the trades. So the traders are doing the trades. The trade support function will ensure the settlement of trades, and ensure that the currency and everything is there, because there's various that they'll do trades in various different currencies in order to make money off the back of that, and there's all kinds of clever stuff that goes on that side of things. So that would be, it's now called more trading operations rather than trade support, but it's the kind of thing wherever you go. You've then got corporate actions and dividends, which is basically looking at what firms that are being invested in and what they do and what they're paying out as dividends, as simple as that. You've then got the fund accounting area of the business, which is often, we go back to the NAV thing, which is as simple as it sounds. It's the accounts for the funds. What's coming in, what's going out, does it all reconcile? So reconciliations is a term that's often used in this. So it's I've got this, does it match? Yes, no problem. Does it not? No, okay, fine. Let's go back and investigate the break in the reconciliation, figure it out, and we go forward. That's fund administration, fund accounting side of things. And then you have on the other side, you've got the performance people. Now, the performance analytics is, in some places, is described as operations. Some places it's described as more sort of front office. I'll go back to that in 1 second. But what that is looking at, again, funds going up and down and why, to make it easier. Then you've got the reporting side of operations, which is quite simply keeping everything in check. So you've got your client reporting, internal reporting, management reporting, and it's as simple as knowing why and how, and explaining that to the people that are investing their money in there. Now, very quickly, and I'll only touch on this, there's 3 different areas of asset management where people will see to work in. There is the back office, the middle office, and the front office. Now, the front office, there's blurred lines on all of them. So the front office are seen as the traders, the analysts, the people who are making the investment decisions and going out and selling the product to people. The middle office are the people that hold it all together. So the trade support, the settlements, and all that kind of stuff is seen as middle office. And then the back office side of things is seen as fund accounting, fund administration, and that kind of thing. Now, what you'll find nowadays is that a lot of the really back office functions, the number crunching, is outsourced to various other external firms who will do this. But regardless, there will be some function that's often called oversight within the middle office, back office of an asset manager, who will oversee all of the work that the external place will do. So you're almost doubling up on that, but it adds checks and balances. And I think the whole thing about operations is it's all about checks and balances and why. Now, what's often seen, the people can often see, they don't realise how important operations is to the rest of the industry. That it's so vital that stuff is running properly. So it is an incredibly important area of the business and how things work.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And I think that's really helpful to know, because it sounds as though not only is it keeping the wheels turning, making sure everything is as it should be, having all of those checks and balances. We need this because it is a highly regulated environment, right?
Well, incredibly so. And I've seen genuine examples of people that I've placed in roles who are in operations who've saved millions and millions and millions of pounds by spotting something tiny that a fund manager might have done at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, hasn't really thought about it. Oh yeah, just do that, it'll be fine. And then the ops person's gone, whoa, stop, you can't do that. And it's all, I mean, it's so important that people are as involved. Now, in a smaller firm, that is even more important. Now, a larger firm, you'll have levels of management that will be checking the work of the ops people. A smaller firm where you've got maybe a head of ops, a senior ops analyst, and that's it on the team. If the ops analyst doesn't spot something and the trader does something a bit rogue without quite realising that they've done it, you can end up with all kinds of bother. So it's really, really important, checks and balances.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's have a think about who might enjoy this industry. And I know it's hard to talk in broad brush terms, given all of those different departments we've just outlined. But I'm wondering, from your vast experience, Jim, who tends to enjoy this industry?
Right, people that have got really good attention to detail. Okay, which is why I don't work in it. Okay, so people that are really, really, really good with numbers, figures, words, and really, really care about getting a really, really good product to market. But by that I mean having the whole thing running smoothly and not being chaotic and being ahead of the game on everything. Self-starter is vital. You can't have somebody who is not interested in it. You know, I always say this to people: this is not just a job. Same as recruitment. It's not just a job. You have to really want to do it. You have to genuinely care what's going on in the financial services world, what's going on in the markets, and you've got to have a desire to, an understanding to that it's such an important area of how all of this stuff works, you know. And so the kind of person that works well on it is specifically people that don't want to try and run before they can walk. This is not an area that you can just flag. It's not like you have to start at the beginning, very, very much so. You've got to, I mean, I've some of the more techie quant firms that I work for will say that it will be a year, realistically speaking, before a person who joins an operations team will be adding value. The rest of the time they'll be learning, because everything they do will have to be checked and checked and checked again. But once they get up to speed, then they're flying. Now, it can also be a really good area for people who do see their career long term in the front office, because they've had an understanding of how everything works. You know, it's not all boring button pushing and checking stuff. There's lots of project work involved in it. it's got to be right and it's got to be good.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, the things I'm hearing there are somebody who has great attention to detail, somebody who is a
Yeah.
self-starter, so is very proactive, uses their initiative, and somebody who is very conscientious and cares about the work they do.
Yeah, I'll add one extra bit as well. It would never suit two people. Number one, a clock watcher. Number two, anyone who's going to say it's not my job. Yeah, because
Yeah,
there are aspects of that role that will change. There
yeah,
is times where something may have gone wrong and you're going to have to stay there until 9-10 o'clock at
yeah,
night checking the reconciliation, checking everything
yeah,
back. There's month-end reconciliations time, there's month, and where you may have to stay a bit later. You can't just walk out. Saying that, I've seen that change a lot over the last few years,
yeah,
which we're seeing hours suddenly shorten a bit. I
yeah,
say the average day I would imagine is 8:30 to 6:30 now, as opposed to 8 till 7 as it used to
yeah,
be. So it's not
yeah,
quite as sort of
yeah,
demanding on that side of things as it used to be. But the most important thing is you've got to be a team player. This is not an industry or an area for people that are trying to stand on people's heads, and you're all
yeah,
working together. You're all in it together. You don't go chucking each other under the bus. You work together to
yeah,
get a good result.
yeah. Thank you. And I'm really curious about the culture of these
Yeah.
functions, Jim. And actually, it might be helpful if you start with, again, very typically, but a typical culture of an asset manager versus an investment bank, and then go on to talk about the culture within asset management operations teams.
No worries. Well, I don't want to get myself into any kind of trouble here, but my thoughts are the investment. And we're talking very generally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Investment banks seem to be a little bit more what I would call a harder culture. So there's more risk in working in an investment bank generally, because
yeah,
there's more people there. They make bigger decisions. If they suddenly decide to stop doing what you do, the chances are you're going to get made redundant.
yeah,
It's one of the harsh facts of life. They may pay an awful lot of money for an entry level person to go and join them, but if something's paying more money than the person may or may not be worth at that level of their career, always keep your eyes open,
yeah,
because I've seen it happen numerous times where people have been offered double their salary to move to an investment bank. They've gone, okay, fine, I'm going to do it. 4 months later, after they've bought a BMW and upgraded their house, they get cut. And I've seen that happen more than once. So the culture, you tend to be, and again, this is a generalization, you tend to be more of a number at an investment bank. They also
yeah,
tend to have very fixed levels. So you go in as an analyst, then you become an associate, then you become an AVP, then a
yeah,
VP. And that doesn't happen with all asset managers. It doesn't happen
yeah,
outside of it. But that's the generalism. Then, so asset management culturally, I would say, because you kind of know who your clients are. Yeah. So it's not like a bank and it's the money, and the money's getting
yeah,
managed and the client's getting paid out. You will almost know who your largest clients are. So it's almost like if you're running a specific pension scheme or something like that, it's a kind of, I feel there's more, you feel more involved, is what I
yeah,
can see from asset management, because you know that so and so has got X million invested in the business, and you probably you may have met them.
yeah,
It's one of those scenarios. You may have been on an event and they've been there. Kind of it's a lot. It's got a lot more face. Does that make
yeah,
sense? You're a lot more visible, I think.
yeah,
You also don't see as much contracting in asset management. You don't see as many people changing jobs as often. So people will go, because they're all very, very different, people will go to one, really love it, and stay there for 10 or 15 years, as where
yeah,
banks seem to be more interchangeable. Now, my
yeah,
knowledge, the whole time I've doing this has been asset management and hedge funds. So
Yeah.
I'm only going on second-hand knowledge from banks and people that I've spoken to.
Yeah.
But on the asset management side, so many different ones have different cultures. Now,
Yeah.
what you're finding now is that there's a massive sort of the big buzzword, and this has probably come up in every single one of these you've done, is flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we're finding generally is that most asset management companies on the operations side will expect people to be in the office 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And then you can work from home 1 of 2 days. Now, this is obviously because of the pandemic. Before the pandemic, there was absolutely no working from home in operations at all.
Yeah.
Everybody was concerned that there's no way your computers might fall over, God knows what might happen. But obviously, having had 3 years of everything being fine, people are more open to that. So, I generally see that the cultures are softer. People know each other more. You get more of a family feel with an asset manager, and people, particularly with these operations roles, because you're so visible, because you've got to speak to everybody in the whole company to do what you do. I would personally, and have done this. The reason I recruited to asset management rather than banks is because I genuinely prefer the culture of those people. I recruited into banks for about 3 months and absolutely didn't enjoy it at all. So I found that there was an awful lot of I find it a lot more jargony, and there seems to be a definitely not quite as inclusive an attitude to people like myself who might not have such a good idea. So if I go on a client briefing in asset management and I don't understand something, I have no issue turning to the head of ops and going, "Stop a second, treat me like an idiot, explain this to me." And I feel with an asset management company, I felt absolutely fine doing that. With a bank, it was like, this is the derivative, that derivative, and that's this derivative, this is a swap, this is this, and you should know this. So I kind of get more softer culture, I would say.
Yeah, and that's
bit of a
actually
rambling
been
answer.
but my experience too. I feel very different, and actually, there's no right or wrong. There'll be
Exactly.
one culture will be better suited to you than another. But for me personally, I've always found it just a touch gentler, a touch softer, and a touch smaller, and just generally more collaborative places to work. I found with a bit less ego.
Exactly that. But there are negatives as well. The fact that it's hard to progress within asset management because people stay. So as with banks, people move around a lot, so people can move up the levels a lot easier. I'm still talking to the same head of ops that I was in 2005. They don't move, which means that there's not always the opportunity for other people to move and progress internally. But again, it's what you prefer.
Yeah. Thank you. And just in terms of the culture of operations teams, and again, this is only from personal experience, but I've tended to view those teams as an outsider as very collaborative teams. They really do seem so united and so there for each other, and they celebrate the wins together, they endure the challenging times together, but it really feels like that from an outsider's perspective, that they're really a tight unit.
Absolutely agree, couldn't agree more. Exactly that. So everybody on the operations side is working together. No one's competing against each other for who's the best at doing this, which is again the difference, I suppose, that you might find in a sales team or something more front related. Is basically you're all there covering each other when things go on, and you check each other's work and help each other out. So it's culturally, I think it's a really, really nice area to work in.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So we've talked about the I guess what people might enjoy about this industry. I'm wondering if you could tell us what people might find challenging about working in this industry.
Yeah, well, the main issue is the fact that the industry is completely beholden to the economy. So
Yeah.
you don't know. I mean, I always say that to people when they come and interview with me, and I probably interview personally 3 or 4 people a day.
Yeah.
They'll say, what's my next step? Well, the answer is you don't have one. You've got to make that for yourself, because
Yeah.
what the business, an asset management company, no matter how good the people are in the business, there's an awful lot that's still beholden to what's going on in the economy. So if
Yeah.
things aren't great out there, the chances are things might not be so great inside either, and there's
Yeah.
nothing you can do about that. So that's challenging. Yeah, the work can be challenging at times, because if particularly towards month end and things like that, when lots of stuff and lots of trading's being done. The other
Yeah.
thing is that we all know people get paid bonuses within investment management and within the financial services industry. Now, operations work just as hard whether the front office is smashing it or doing terribly. It makes no difference. It's not your fault. As the operations team, people do get frustrated. My bonus is a bit down this year, and it's got no sort of correlation towards how the front office have performed. So sometimes that can be frustrating. There are some mundane tasks. There are mundane tasks in every single job. There's mundane tasks in my job. That is the hardest thing, because if you're doing reconciliations and you're just doing reconciliations all day, checking numbers against numbers and numbers against numbers and numbers can get boring. Yeah, for some people. So I think those are the main challenges. Also, the challenge from my perspective for recruiting into this area, particularly with junior people, is no one knows it exists. So externally, the operations world isn't that visible. Internally, massively visible and really, really, really important. But you don't see lecturers at universities in financial services explaining to people in depth what operations does, because it's not seen as so. And the prestige of it maybe as well, So it needs to be it's getting much more recognised as an area to work.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. And absolutely, I mean, that's the reason I wanted to bring you on to talk about this, because I think that so far we've been talking about roles, and many of those will be roles that our audience have never heard of. But I also wanted to do the same for industry, because we really need to kind of pull back the curtain as to what is behind the highlight role. So it's a little bit like in IT and technology. So many people say, well, I couldn't possibly work in technology or IT because I'm rubbish at IT. But it's like, well, actually, let's pull back the curtain. There are 100 different functions or more within a technology firm. Many of those could be right for you, but of course, if you don't know about them, you wouldn't know to pursue them.
No, exactly. Well, this is again, specifically again talking about the asset management world and tech. So many more roles now need people that have got programming skills, have got SQL, have got VBA, have got all that kind of stuff. Python. And I've just placed an absolutely brilliant girl who had that data skill set in a different industry and really wanted to get to financial services, didn't know how. I sat down with her for about 6 minutes, and I was like, I know where you can go. She got the job a week later. It's the importance of realizing that exactly that it's not just, you don't have to be the next Jordan Belafonte to be to make money in financial services. There are many other ways to do it.
Yeah, thank you. So that has led me very nicely onto how do people get into this industry? And I wonder if you could touch on the more traditional routes in and perhaps the more non-traditional routes in.
Right, okay. So the first thing that happens is that people come out of university or school and say, right, okay, I want to be a trader. And they then phone me and I have to say to them, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. Okay, and that is the very, very first thing that people always think.
And actually, Jim, while we're here, tell us why. Because if anyone's at home listening right now and thinking, well, that's exactly the call I wanted to make. Why is it a no?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So many reasons. Reason number one, traders are no longer retiring. So it's so difficult. They used to retire at 40. They're now still going till they're 70. So the roles aren't really opening up there. Reason number two is technology. Many firms are now heading towards a quant method when it comes to front office. Now, quant investing is basically you have a bunch of PhD people in a room typing all of this data out for ages and ages. They press a button, it's algorithmic, it goes round and round and round and round and round, and basically there is no what people would have thought of trading back in the day where people are on a trading floor going buy, sell, buy, sell. None of that happens anymore. It's just a touch of button and around it goes.
Yeah.
The other reason, and this is the reason I always give to people, if I had £1 million and I invested into an asset management company and I knew that someone had just stepped out of university was touching my money, I'd be pulling it out of there right away. Okay? It's as simple as that. You need to have the experience first. There is an opportunity occasionally for a front office junior analyst entry level position. They are so oversubscribed. You know from when you worked before. It's a lottery. It's an absolute lottery. And what we don't want to happen, and this does happen sadly, is people will talk to their parents who may have made it big in this world in the 90s and really have this envision in their head that they're going to be a trader, they're going to be front office, and they spend 6-7 months trying to get in to this area, getting absolutely nowhere. And by the time they actually realise that maybe operations is a good way in, maybe trade support, maybe distribution is the way to get to where I want to go, all the roles have gone. And that's the really heartbreaking bit. So whenever I speak to people who are coming out of university or coming for their first role, I always say that to them. Look, if you want to get into the front office, bypass me, knock on as many doors as you possibly can, you might get lucky. Honestly, there is so much lucky. I've seen people with fairly average educational backgrounds get incredibly lucky and get straight in there. I've seen people with unbelievable education on paper and CFA level 1, 2 and 3, which is a really hard qualification we'll talk about later, already just not getting anywhere. So how to get into it is the big firms do sort of, I would call them internships. They tend to have different names for them. And what they would do is that they would take you on, they'll pay you a fairly low basic salary. You work for a year, you understand, and you can get into stuff that side of things. Now, again, the front office role there probably A, doesn't exist, or B, has got 1,000,001 people applying for it. Look for the operations internship, the client service internship. That's how you'll get in. Because you're going the path least trod. We're finding that a lot of clients are coming to us now directly with junior roles because it's so hard to pick a graduate or a junior person from a CV. So they rely on my knowledge to have spent some time with the people, have got the attitude and understanding right, and worked it through. So coming to someone like me is probably a very good way to start your career, even if it's just for a 10-minute chat. So I can say, this is good. This is what you need to do. Glassdoor is a great place to look for jobs. LinkedIn's a great place to look for jobs. eFinancial is still around. I don't use it as much as we used to. City Jobs the same. But we're finding that having your LinkedIn absolutely looking fantastic is the way to go. The other thing, which is really important, I can't stress this enough, this is probably the most important thing I'm going to say on this whole podcast, get your Excel up to date. Your Excel and your and any kind of data skills that you can get, SQL, Python, VBA. I cannot tell you how unbelievably important that is going to be to your next step if you want to get into this world. It is just, if you don't have that, you're really you're really gonna struggle more so than a first class or a 2-1. Those data skills and IT skills from an Excel perspective is absolutely vital. There are grad schemes now. I mean, they are few and far between. The competition for them is absolutely crazy, but you could get in through that way if you like. Networking, family, friends, people that people who work in industry offer to go and work for them during your Easter holidays or your Christmas break. Go and get some experience in that office, because the other disconnect is that people who are actually recruiting for these positions may not have hired for 4 or 5 years and have got no idea what they need. So it's an education on both sides of things. Getting in front of as many people as you can is absolutely key.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Jim. And I just wonder if we can touch on something that some of our audience might be finding if they've already started applying for jobs. It can be completely soul destroying when you apply for jobs online and hear nothing back, or you get the rejection within 2 minutes of sending the application form in. So I wonder if you could just touch on that for us, Jim, but also perhaps give some ideas for how people might be perhaps a bit more creative about that application process to help them.
Very, very easy. I do this all the time. I may be giving away more than I should here, but you will see jobs advertised online, on LinkedIn, on wherever. You will see that they've had 500 applicants. Now, don't worry, they haven't had 500 applicants. There's internal filter systems that will stop people who are unable to, let's say, who don't have the right working visas and stuff like that. There will be internal filters. There'll be internal filters on experience. They'll say, for example, have you used Excel? Do you have an ACCA? Do you have? And they will automatically filter those people out before they eventually get to me or to whoever the recruiting person is. If you get one of those blanket emails in 2 seconds flat saying, I'm sorry, you haven't been successful, there are ways around it, but you have, this is the really, really important thing. Do not expect to get an interview for something that you don't have the experience for. There is no chancing it anymore. There's no, if, for example, they're saying you need to have strong Excel skills and a knowledge of fixed income derivatives to do this job, if you haven't got it, there's no point applying for it because they're not going to miraculously decide to give you a chance. Sad as it may be, they're not going to do it. If you believe that you've been rejected despite the fact that you've got exactly the right skill sets, now there's 2 reasons for that. Well, there's several reasons for that, but 2 main reasons. Reason number 1, the person who's posted up the job has put a very, very strict filter in. They said they needed 3 years. You said you've got 2, and you've been automatically rejected on that basis. The other reason is, unfortunately, lots of jobs online get automatically updated and automatically put up there by unscrupulous recruiters or whatever, and they may not really be actually hiring for it. So, or the role may have gone in the last 2 days, or they may have already shortlisted, but the advert's still up. You don't know. Sadly, you've just got to keep going for it. Now, if you are utterly convinced that you have been hard done by completely, the role's live, why haven't you been seen, and you've got the confidence, figure out who the hiring manager is and send them an email. Now, you need the confidence to do that. Don't become a pain in the bottom. Don't annoy people. Don't do it every single day. Say that they said, right, okay, we're looking for someone with a year's internship in asset management, 3 A's at A level and a 2-1 and a maths-based degree, maths-based subject, and you've got that and you've applied and you've got the message through straight away saying, sorry, not successful, then I would consider it. And then just find out who the hiring manager is, pop your CV over to them directly and see how you get on. So if that kind of mass and the other thing is, again, don't consistently apply for jobs that, like I said it before, you don't have the skill set for, because your name will appear in a recruiter's inbox for every single job that you've applied for, and the recruiter will look at that and say, what does this person want to do? Yeah. So you do need to be a little bit more specific. Another really, really important thing, be humble. Nobody out in this world of asset management operations is looking for their next superstar fund manager today. You may be that person in 5 or 10 years' time. What they're looking for today is someone to come and do this operations job really, really, really well. So if the first thing on your CV says, I want to be a portfolio manager in the front office, and I want to, and this is my personal portfolio, and I've made this much money in the last 3 or 4 years, you're getting rejected straight off the bat. You're not even going to get past that to that interview stage. You need to be, I'm looking for my first role within the investment management world. I have very strong attention to detail. I am fairly new to this, so I'm fairly open to the sort of thing that I want to do, but I've got these brilliant Excel skills. I'd be really keen to have a conversation. That's what your CV has to say. It's not all about, look at me, ego at all. In fact, that's the biggest turn off. And I've seen a good change in that over the last few years. When I first started doing this job, the CVs I would get and the claims that people would make, it was just insane. So,
Thank you, Jim. That's helpful. And actually, I'm just curious about cover letters. I think that people have different views. I personally like them if they're well written, personalised, and humble, like you say. But I'm curious about your view.
Yeah. Right. To a recruiter, completely not necessary. They're never going to read them. Yeah, and that's me being harsh and honest. You just wouldn't have the time to read all of the ones that came through. The most important thing is a really good, short and concise introduction on your CV rather than a specific cover letter. Now, if we're going for, and I've got a role at the moment where writing is very, very important, then I would say, so that would be an RFP role. Now, RFP, request for proposal, very, very important, very visual and great entry-level role in asset management. Basically, what you're doing is you're pulling together all of the information about the business, what's going on in the business, that will then eventually become marketing material or client reporting fact sheet information for people investing. Now, something like that, I would think a cover letter would be a really good idea. If someone wants to see your experience straight off. But for particularly in 2023, when people are getting so many applications for a role, I don't know whether cover letters are going to get read as much as they should do. It's my honest opinion. I wholeheartedly agree with them. And I think if you're doing direct applications for a role, so by direct, I mean not going through a talent team and not going through a recruiter such as myself. If you're going straight to a COO or a CEO, then absolutely a cover letter is the way. But don't break your neck on it if you're looking to, if you're applying to a recruiter. I don't think it will get as read as you'd want it to be. One thing which is we are massive at the DDIM, absolutely massive, and honestly it makes such a difference, is references. So when they're not references, they're testimonials. So a reference would be, you've joined a business and they'll send a letter to your previous employer saying, did John Smith work for you between X and X, and would you consider hiring him again? That's all a reference is. Now, a testimonial is someone you've worked with or worked for in the past who will, off their own bat, say, Jim's great because he always goes the extra mile and he worked for me for 5 years and I would love to hire him again. And that's a testament. That, some of those to go with your CV, I cannot even say how important something like that would be. So I don't know. I may have veered off a little bit on that one, but
Well, all helpful stuff, Jim. Really helpful. Thank you. Okay, so we've touched on the CFA. I'm curious if you could expand on that, but also tell us what other, I guess, qualifications might be useful in this area.
There's three main ones and a couple around the side. Yeah. So there's the IOC, which is the Investment Operations Certificate.
Okay.
Get out there and do it, is my answer to that one. If you want a career in operations and you do that before you've got one, that is going to make people in operations think this person wants to do operations, let's hire them. Now, I used to put some of my recruiters through this. I never did it myself. Incredibly helpful. Christy did it. Incredibly helpful for getting a good basic understanding of how the industry works. Yeah. It also shows commitment. Showing commitment at entry level and early stages in your career is really, really important. So IOC, number one, get it done. Yeah. The IMC, which is the Investment Management Certificate, is a slightly more investment focused qualification. Yeah. That will, again, stand you out from the crowd a little bit if you've done it. Then you've got CFA. Now, CFA is a double-edged sword, yeah, particularly going in for operations roles. The CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst exam, there's three parts to it. Part one has got a 35% pass rate. It is incredibly difficult. It requires an awful lot of work. It is seen as important within industry, but really only important when you're working in a job. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference for getting your first job. Also, it can freak people out because people can see, oh, this guy's got CFA level 2. Why does he want to do an operations job? He quite clearly wants to be in the front office and be an analyst. Pass. Now, that is a blinkered and short-sighted view, but it is a big one. It happens to me a lot. I'll get. The number one reason why people get rejected at final stage is people thinking that someone wants to try and get to the front office too quickly. That is absolutely number one reason. So when you're going, so having the CFA may also almost be a negative in putting fear into people's minds. Yeah. Then you've got the accounting qualifications, which are always useful. Now, for a fund accountant, people used to like them to be qualified. Not as important really now, because most of the accounting functions are done externally, or financial accounting is done in the finance team, which isn't. Which I'm keeping separate from operations. So that's for your accountants and all that kind of stuff. But an accounting qualification is always useful. Do not sniff at them. They are something which will help you throughout your career. I will never have anyone turn down for a role in asset management operations because they've got that. It can only be a good thing. Then you've got the slightly you've got the KIA, which is Certificate in Alternative Investment Association, something to that effect, which is specifically kind of a CFA for hedge funds. So that's more technical and looking more at alternative investments and that kind of thing. Then you've got there's a performance one as well. I think it's called the CIPM, Chartered Institute of Performance Management. That one's also really, really performance measurement. Sorry, that's also really, really useful if you want to be in performance and client reporting and that sort of stuff. But the main one, if you want to go into ops, do your IOC. I don't even think it costs that much at all. So that's definitely something. If someone's looking is coming up for graduation, thinking what can I do to improve my career? I've done all I can already on the Excel stuff. Make that clear as well, because that's the most important thing. But the IOC is the one to look at.
Yeah, that's great advice, and I bet it's cheaper than a master's.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it will carry more weight. Honestly, it's sometimes higher level qualifications like masters can again make people concerned that people's eyes will be on the front office only and won't be working on the offside. So
and actually the reason I say that is because from personal experience, but I know from talking to others, on many occasions people do the masters or think about doing the masters because they don't know what to do when they leave college or uni. And so you're effectively kicking that decision down the road. You're kicking that can down the road. So I don't know what to do. I'll do a master's. That will take a year or two, and then I'll decide. And then they get to the end of the master's and they still don't know what to do. So I think it's just, if you're thinking of doing a master's, make sure it's for the right reasons, not because you're buying time.
Yeah. And to be absolutely harsh in this area, it's not going to make any difference at all. The chances of a master's being the difference between you getting the job over someone with a 2-1, it's never happened to me. I've never had a client ever say, we're taking that one because of the masters. Never, ever.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Thank you. So we've talked about, I guess, technical skills, certifications, the Excel, the Python, the SQL, and so on. I'm wondering, and I think we might have touched on some of these, but I'm wondering what softer skills tend to be needed in these teams, in addition to collaboration, which we've already talked about.
Well, do you know what? It's a really, really good point. What they need, you need patience.
Yeah.
You need to have to be tenacious and be happy with sometimes having to do repetitive tasks. You have and keeping those repetitive tasks accurate. So I think that a lack of ego will really, really help in this area. So someone who is obviously you get different personality types and that kind of thing. So someone who's a real pushy, salesy person, it's not going to suit. Somebody who is sort of like myself, a bit on the old slapdash side when it comes to attention to detail, it's not going to work for them either. So it's I think that lack of ego, being very collaborative and very, very, very into providing excellence and getting good work done is absolutely key. But competition is not. Competitiveness, I would say, is probably the furthest thing away from useful in operation.
Yeah,
in my
that's
opinion.
good to know. Thank you. And actually, I just want to touch on this, and I probably should have touched on it before, but when we were talking about getting into the industry, I think it's really important to say that that some people will get into this area and absolutely love it and want to spend their whole career in this industry. Some people may indeed have their sights on a different department, including portfolio management and so on. But where you land in your first or second job doesn't dictate the rest of your career. I think that's really important, don't you, Jim?
Oh, that's absolutely right, because it happens all the time. It's just people come to me and they say, do you know what, that job spec, don't fancy that. How do you know?
Yeah.
I personally will always try and withhold a job spec to start with. Have a conversation with the person about the job before I pass it on to them to read, particularly at a junior level, because they're not going to know.
Yeah.
So exactly.
Yeah.
And you're right. Your first job, never use the term foot in the door. Yeah, there's no term more likely to have you not get the job than using the term foot in the door. But an entry level position will get you into a business and enable you to see how it all runs and works. Yeah. So if you're sitting there waiting for this amazing front office role to land on your lap, it may never do. You need to get in there and start working and start learning and start understanding. I always say to people, the most important skill set for your first job is your ability to get up at 5:30 in the morning, get yourself ready, get into the city, work in an office all day, and come home at the end of the day and do it again for 5 days in a row. That is why jobs at university, I've been a bin man, I sold double glazing, stuff like that. The fact that to have actually been into the workplace is such an important sell to these people. So you are better off doing a role that may not be your dream job in asset management if you want to at some point be a portfolio manager than be sitting at home sending applications out, which is what you'll spend an awful lot of time doing if that's what you expect to be doing. So absolutely. your first role in asset management is never necessary.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So actually, I think this would be a really nice time to talk about mentorship within the industry. Is that something you see much of? And if so, how does that work?
Yes. You know what? I do see a bit of it, but it's mainly junior people telling me that so and so is their mentor, rather
Okay.
than someone actually offering to do it. Now,
Right.
I personally mentor, for want of a better word, a lot of candidates. I've spent a lot
Yeah.
of time with a lot of people. Obviously, I make money out of this. It's how I pay my mortgage, eat and feed my children, and buy guitars. But also, I really enjoy it. I
Yeah.
really love seeing people get to where they need to go. So I'll always give anyone that contacts me and asks for it, I'll give them 15 minutes, always.
Yeah.
And that 15 minutes, and it's, you can, if you see my LinkedIn recommendations, that 15 minutes in a lot of cases can save people a year of
Yeah.
barking up the wrong tree, you know. But when it comes to actual mentorships, you got to take it where you can get it. Anyone in this industry that's going to give you some time, bite their hand off. It's my
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
There
And
needs to be
for
more of
anybody,
it.
yeah, absolutely. And for anybody thinking, oh, I'd love to have a mentor, but I don't know how to go about getting one, or I'm maybe not confident enough to ask someone who I think might be a good mentor, what would you say to that person?
Just ask them. Absolutely, just ask them, because I mean, being asked to be someone's mentor is a flattering thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they haven't got time, they'll tell you. But no one's going to be annoyed at you for asking for some mentorship, are they? It's
No.
just, yeah. If they haven't got time, they can always say to him, "Sorry, I haven't got time." But yeah, I think
Yeah.
you just, the other main thing, particularly in this world of asset, again, you can't just rely on clicking buttons and applying for jobs, and you can't expect anything to come to you. You have to be
Yeah.
on the front foot, speaking to people all the time, like I do for my business development. I don't just sit and wait for jobs to come to me. I'm
Yeah.
constantly with people for various reasons, and you have to. Networking is a skill and an art. You need to know how to speak to people without bothering them and
Yeah.
annoying them. So that's an important skill set. Go out and ask and learn how to ask people to be your mentor. So and a lot of these roles as well, you're going to be facing off to senior people who in some cases might be extremely grumpy or really,
Yeah.
really busy. So you
Yeah.
need to be able to reach out to someone more senior and say, can I have some help? So yeah,
Yeah.
my advice to the person is, just ask 10 people. You're not doing yourself any negative things at all. Don't
Yeah.
just randomly message someone on LinkedIn and ask them to. Build a relationship with them first. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And actually, Jim, while we're on the subject of networking, as a master networker yourself, could you give the audience some top tips?
Right. Okay. I absolutely hate official networking. Going to
Okay.
networking events and stuff like that. I am terrible at it. I don't know what to say. I look at the ground holding my drink. But
It's unnatural,
when
isn't
it
it?
comes to it's unnatural. When it comes to proper development of stuff, the answer is, and it's always worked for me, is absolutely be genuine and be yourself. Yeah, people are interested in people and stuff that they do. Don't go straight in with being overly corporate. Don't be too slack. But don't be overly corporate. I always say to people, leave your interests on your CV. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never assign yourself to a football team, because if you support Arsenal and your CV is going to someone who supports Spurs, you're not getting an interview. But if you're interested in football, if you play cricket, you play golf, or you're into your music, put it on there, yeah? Because people don't want to talk about their job. People don't want to talk about it. They want to have some interaction with you as well. The other thing, ask people about themselves.
Yes.
Don't just tell people about you. Sit down and say, right, okay, you've worked at Goldman Sachs for 10 years. Run me through 3 or 4 things that you've enjoyed about working there. Tell me
Yeah.
What you like about it. And that, I think, is offering help to people and being helpful will always get you help. And I always say this to people, and I mean it, when I'm developing business and talking to people. If I place you this time and make some money out of it, brilliant. But if I help you get a job and you just say some nice things to people about me and come back to me in 5 years' time when you're a manager to hire from me, just as good. It's make time for everyone that wants to speak to you, and most importantly, and particularly in this, don't ghost anybody. It takes 2 seconds to go back to someone and say busy or whatever. Just don't hide from people. From a candidate perspective, particularly if I'm recruiting and I've got a candidate that I'm working with and the client wants to meet them and they just don't come back to me ever, that's awful for me. For me, that it makes me look stupid. It makes them look stupid. If you found a job, brilliant. If you decide this isn't what you want to do, great. Just tell me. I don't mind. Okay? Absolutely. And that is so, and I think that's culturally now. A lot of it's come from internet dating, I guess, that people just disappear on people. Don't do it. If you don't want to do, I would much rather someone say to me, Jim, you know what? I've had a look at that company. Don't fancy it at all. Not for me. No problem. Don't have me chasing you 3 or 4 times a day, because the next thing you know, I'll have something you do want, and then just transparency always, and communication always the most important.
I think there's a couple of nice things you talked about there, Jim. And as you were describing the way you network, it almost made me think about how you get to know friends. And, if I take myself back to that first week at uni, the first question was, oh, what's your name? What course are you doing? But then beyond that, it was, oh, where are you from? What do you like doing? Da, 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 da. And it's a conversation. It's not me telling you about myself. It's a conversation where we get to know each other, and that feels more doable than networking, right?
Of course. Well, listen, you spend more time with the people you work with than you do with your family. You need to get to know them. There's got to be a rapport there, and you can only ever be yourself in any situation. You can't go into an interview pretending you're somebody, because when you start the job, it's not going to work. You have to be wholeheartedly, genuinely into it. So I think that's my biggest job as a recruiter, is that I need, and again, it's happening to me now as we speak. I'm working on a role, and I've got 30 people that could do it, but I need to find the 5 right people for it. And that I'm only going to find that out by developing a relationship with the right people and finding out what makes them tick. Otherwise it's not going to work.
And I think the other really interesting piece that you touched on twice actually was having a long-term view, whether that comes to relationship building or business development, or the candidate who may well come back to you in a few years' time and want to apply for your job, but feels they can't because they ghosted you this time.
Oh, 100%, honestly. But you've got to always be aware of that. I mean, my 2 biggest deals this year were from somebody who, at the time, didn't have anything for me, was fairly new to their senior position. I went, and they needed to know about a few bits about salary surveys, market information. I went and sat and had a coffee with them. 10 years later, I placed 2 very senior candidates with them this year. People remember the people that looked after them well.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you could clarify the typical hiring cycles for this function.
Generally, what would happen is the first stage will be on Teams. So and when that happens, you are wearing your best shirt, a tie, your hair is tidy, your background is tidy, you're treating it as though you're going in for an interview. You don't do what I've done today and wear a open neck collar. You absolutely are completely smart and ready to go. So that's stage one. Now, there could be quite a few stage ones on this one, and I'd expect that process to probably run over to 1 to 2 weeks. So don't be worried if you don't get an answer. What to say to your recruiter and to say to anybody that you interview with is, if I'm not successful, please tell me. Do not leave me hanging, because that's really, really, really unfair. And I try my best never to let that happen. So I'll often put a bulletin on LinkedIn saying, if you need to hear from me, if you're waiting on me, call me, because I'm not ignoring you. I've just got busy, you know. So it's really important. I would then, at that stage, then next stage would probably be face to face. Now, face to face is when you want to again make sure you're fully suited and booted. Make sure that you have prepared, and I'll always say in the same way: 5 reasons why you want to work for the company, 5 reasons why you want to do the job, 5 things that you can bring to the table. Always prepare those 3 things for every interview. When you go in face to face is when you take your testimonial, your references with you. At the end of the interview, thank you very much. Lovely to meet you. Here you go. If you want the job, tell them you want the job. Don't walk out of there wishing you hadn't done that. Thank you very much. Really great to meet you. I'm really interested in this. Thank you very much. Yeah?
Yeah.
Goes such a long way.
Yeah.
Because the client will phone me up and say, yeah, they're really good. I've no idea if they want this or not. You know, that is, and particularly at entry level positions, the person that the client should hire and the one that I advise them to hire is the person that wants the job the most. Always.
Yeah.
Always hire the person that you know is going to be the first one in and the last one out of the office. Hire that person that wants it. So make sure you honour that person for stage 2. Now, stage 3 will usually be an HR or talent acquisition, a meet the team, or a big boss meet, or a combination of all 3. Yeah?
Yeah.
So the HR one, as you know, checking for cultural fit, making sure that the person's got the right kind of skill set. Obviously, I've done my job and talked about the money side of things, but you need to do it again. The talent acquisition will run through in detail what your expectations are, what benefits are, all that kind of stuff. And meeting with the big boss probably won't have the first idea what you're going to be doing for this job. The big boss is right up here. They're going to want to know, what do you like playing golf? Okay, what's your favourite drink? But it sounds crazy. The chances when you get to that sort of level that you're going to get a really in-depth technical question from a COO or a CEO is very low. They're much more about, are you the right fit for the business? And the meet the team is really, really important, because you're going to be sitting with these people every single day. They may throw the odd technical question at you, but again, it's much more likely that it's going to be based on you as an individual, as a human being, and how you can fit it.
Yeah.
So that's how and then after that, your recruiter must already know what you would accept financially. They should have asked you that to start with. They should have cleared that with you financially, and there should be no surprises. So if you get an offer at that stage, the client should know what you're expecting. You should know what you're expecting, and you should know whether you want to take that or not. Yeah. Do not listen to your parents when they say to you, try to negotiate it a bit higher. Doesn't happen anymore. What that would then mean is that people then have to go back to a hiring committee, back to usually the US or wherever their head office is, to get the salary increased. At a junior level, they're not going to do that. They'll just offer it to the next person down the line. Yeah. So that's also a really, really important tip for this kind of thing. And then hopefully you get offered the job, and then you've got to go through your checks. Now your checks now more important than ever. Do you have the full right to work in whatever country you're going for a job in? Yeah. If you don't, you should have. Your recruiter should have checked, HR should have checked, or you should have piped up by now. Yeah. It's happened to me once in the last 2 years where I thought I didn't check. Now I always check, but I didn't check, and it bit me. So that's really, really important.
Yeah.
Be upfront about that to start with. It's not something anyone can get around. If you have any criminal convictions at all for any reason whatsoever, flag and say so.
Yeah.
As long as they're not fraud related or downright nasty, you're probably going to be okay. But if you don't say, that is when you're going to get the offer. Yeah. And the other thing is credit check. So at your level of career, you're probably going to be all right for a credit check as well. But these things will be checked. And one absolute vital one, which I forgot to mention, your academic information and details must be absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Do not say you got a 2-1 when you got a 2-2. Do not say you will get fired before you start. Every single time. That's happened to me more times than I would care to admit. And I always say to people, look, don't want to call you a liar. I'm not calling you a liar. It's very, very important at this stage that you tell me exactly that what you've given me information-wise is absolutely correct, because when the checks come through, you will get found out. And I always know when it's happened because the candidate won't call me back.
Yeah.
Everything's been great. Yeah. Everything's been great. They've got the offer. They've got the check packed through. They won't reply. They're like, what have you done here? The other one, which is a little bit more relevant to your second jobber, so I'm sure we'll be watching your podcast as well. Do not embellish your basic salary. Your basic salary will show up on your P45 if you've embellished that before you. If you say, oh yeah, I was on 47.5 when actually you're on 42 plus a bonus of whatever it is, you will get fired before you start. Yeah. Because you've given it correct information. So always be honest and direct about that. And then if all that's done, you get the job and you start a couple of weeks later. So yeah. Some very, very important and harsh lessons in there.
Yeah, Jim, that was really helpful. Thank you. And I think that I think that for many, the piece around being honest about your qualifications, your current base salary, if that is applicable, or whether you have had anything that could cause you problems, like a criminal conviction or something to do with credit that could show up on the checks. It is so important to be honest. And yes, it probably would feel very uncomfortable, but usually in financial services, asset management, one of the core values will be honesty and integrity. And when companies are hiring, they want to know that you're somebody that is aligned with their values. And if before you've even started, they can see that you're somebody who has kind of failed that integrity check, there's nothing they can do. They have to take the offer back.
Yeah, and as a complete aside to that as well, if you've done something and been prosecuted for something that is probably fairly minor and isn't your fault or whatever, and you come clean.
Yeah.
I've had that happen this year as well. And the candidate was like, I got a conviction for X.
Yeah.
This is why I've got a conviction for X. Here is some evidence to go alongside it. No problem. Absolutely no. Yeah, there's nothing to do with financial services at all. A very unfortunate circumstance that happened to you. No problem at all. You've got the job still and everything's okay. Had that person not have said to me prior to the checks, they'd have got the job for definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Brilliant. Thank you. And just quickly, Jim, I think that typical graduate cycles, intern cycles are sort of September onwards, and then there's usually another kind of push in January. But I think for entry level roles in this area, I imagine it's kind of all year round, right?
There's no seasonality in hiring anymore. At all. Yeah. The best month I've had this year has been August.
Okay.
Nothing makes any sense anymore. So don't let that. But, and this is one very important thing, there is no point starting to apply for jobs until you're able to start within 1 to 2 months.
Yeah, good point.
Because if you're sending your CV in September when you're graduating in July, you're wasting your time. Absolutely. And I mean, I've picked up some great candidates like that who've sent me the CV and I've just gone, look, number one focus for you now is getting that first class degree or getting that 2-1 from the 2-2. That's all you need to focus on. Pick up the phone to me the day you finish your last exam. Let's have a coffee. But until that point, don't even think about applying for jobs. You're wasting your time.
Yeah, unless it's for a scheme where the start date is the following.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
as I said to you, that those are so few and far between.
Yeah.
And the number of people, I mean, on one hand, I can count the number of people who've been in that situation this year or the year before who've got grad schemes going on. There's just nothing really on that level.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Jim, what does the future hold for asset management operations?
right. Okay. So the future holds a lot more technology. So work hard on the SQL, VBA, programming skills, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Very often, lots of operation stuff gets outsourced to various different countries. Stuff gets automated.
Yeah.
The problem is you're dealing with people's money. It will always come back. Something will always come back. There'll always be roles within operations and middle office because it can't ever be totally automated because you just don't know what's going to go on externally, you know. And that. So the future is again a lot more automation, more outsourcing. But there's always going to be jobs somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Depending on what you want to do.
Yeah. Thank you. And the other piece I wanted to touch on was obviously ESG, sustainability, climate. These topics are really important in asset management these days and continuing to be so. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. It's the most important thing in investments currently. Yeah?
Yeah.
15 years ago, people didn't care at all about such things. Basically, you give someone the money, they make as much money for you as they possibly can, and that's it. That's all people care about.
Yeah.
Now, ESG, which is environmental social governance, as far as I always get slightly wrong. I work with 3 or 4 of the top ESG asset management companies in the world. Their values are absolutely there's ESG investing and impact investing. Now, ESG investing is basically looking at what people do to invest in and making it as environmentally friendly as possible. So trying to avoid fossil fuels. Many different examples of that sort of thing, all which can be looked up online and all which change daily. Then there's impact investing, which is specifically going out to invest in green energy and the like. So that's actually going out and investing in a school project, charity stuff that will specifically help stuff. So ESG is kind of making sure that everything you're doing is good.
Yeah.
And impact is specifically going out there and doing good things specifically to invest in those sort of things. Yeah. Both are absolutely vital and really exciting places to be. Also, always great talking points in interview. Talk me through your ESG policy. Yeah. Really important to be checking out and reading about on a daily basis. So it's so much of what we do nowadays is about being as kind as we can to the environment, and in the past, straight out, it hasn't been. So it's definitely changing. Really important.
Yeah, great. So if people want to find out more about this part of the industry, whether that be books or podcasts or professional bodies or online resources or your good self, where would you send them?
To be honest, I don't know if there's much out there. Again, that's one of the reasons we're having this conversation. So always come to me. Speak to, reach out to COOs and heads of ops at investment management firms if that's where you want to work. Ask your parents, friends, and contact as many people and get out and have coffees with people and chat to them. LinkedIn, connect to a load of people on LinkedIn who work in that area, and you'll see the information. Follow all the asset management companies on LinkedIn. Subscribe to Investment Weekly, which is a free source of information that can pop into your inbox once a day. I do, and that's where I get most of my information from. Just being clued up on stuff is vital, and also remembering that this is a vocation and a long-term thing, not just a way to pay the rent. And that is and that's you've got to be curious and get the information. For example, if you've got someone going to interview at a hedge fund, the chances are there's going to be that much on the internet about that fund. So you need to
Yeah.
be looking at news articles and news stories and asking people, because it's the information that you seek is just not going to be available in the public domain. So you need to do your
Yeah.
own research.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good tips. All right. Thank you. Jim, I'm very aware that we've spent the majority of time talking about the asset management operations industry, and I want to ask you a few questions about yourself in a moment. But I'm just wondering, is there anything else we need to say that we haven't said about this part of the industry?
I think we've covered stuff fairly well, to be honest with you. But again, and as you said, anyone that's listening to this, please do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll happily sort of, and also I'll reach out to Joe, and Joe will put you in touch with me. And I'm more than happy to have more in-depth conversations with you about it.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Because it's one of those
Okay.
things, until you actually start applying for roles in this area, it's going to be difficult
Yeah.
to tell.
Yeah. And perhaps if you get overwhelmed, Jim, we can do a follow-up Q&A.
Always, yes, absolutely. Always happy to do that.
Okay, Jim, I'm really curious about you and your journey. And of course, that isn't something we focused on today, but I'm wondering, with all of your aspirations and life lessons along the way, what do you know now that you wish you'd known when you were just starting out?
Oh, what I wish I'd got into recruitment in 1996, yeah, rather than waiting for goodness knows how many years to get into it, because I really enjoy it. But again, I know we're not talking about recruitment here, but that I wish I knew more about that then.
Yeah.
From my personal journey, you know what? Yeah. You just got to throw yourself at it, and if something doesn't feel right, get out of it straight away, because it's not going to change. I think that's really, if you get somewhere where you're culturally not right. I joined a very, very reputable asset financial services recruitment firm about 10, 12, more than that. I don't want to give the number because I don't want people to think it wasn't anywhere I stayed for very long, put it that way. And culturally, on the interview process, they absolutely sold it to me. And I walked in there, and after about 5 minutes, I knew I'd chosen the wrong place.
Yeah.
And the way, and if you get that feeling, get up.
Listen.
Because it's not going to change. If you walk in, it happened to my wife as well. You walk in somewhere for your first day, and you feel like you walked into someone's living room, you're not in the right organisation.
Yeah.
By walking to someone's living room, I mean that in a negative way, like you've just walked in unannounced. I don't mean been invited in for coffee. I mean, if you feel uncomfortable, unwanted, and so, as though you're not supposed to be there, you're not.
Yeah.
That's one. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Don't give up on something too quickly once you got moving. I know that kind of contradicts my last point a little bit. I mean, in this area of recruitment, I think it takes about a year to get really good at something. I think that there's something about some law of 10,000 hours or something for you to become good at something. But I mean, if you are enjoying something, keep at it.
Yeah.
And the rewards will come. I mean, I've recruited into this specific area for God knows how many years. It's 18 years, I think. And as I say, some days are bad, some days are great, some days are in the middle, but I always learn something. So
yeah, thank you. And what would you say to young Jim who wanted to be a rock star and a music journalist?
Move to London. It's not going to happen in Devon. if I'd have moved to London when I was young and handsome, I would have got somewhere with it. But but generally, it's going to work out and it's going to be fine in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just might be a bit difficult getting there. Is the true answer to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And Jim, I'm wondering if you're someone that likes quotes or inspirational phrases or mantras, and if so, have you got any you could share with us?
I have. If you dislike a man, walk a mile in his shoes, because then you'll be a mile away from him and you'll have his shoes. That was a stupid one. Honest opinion, no, I'm not really. Yeah, I'm much more about people, and I love I love all my band stuff and my lyrics and reading books and all that kind of thing. But I'm not really an inspirational quote kind of person. But it's, if it's anything, it's just talk to people.
Yeah. Great advice. And Jim, what is your secret to happiness and fulfillment at work?
Working with nice people. Absolutely working with, going back to everything, working with people who inspire you, people who can do stuff that you can't. I look at my MD, Anne. I mean, Anne's been in recruitment for longer than I have. I don't know how Anne does what she does. I've got absolutely no idea. And every day she'll come in and have done some amazing deal somewhere on something, and I'm just like, how'd you do that? You know, so working with people that inspire you to want to understand more, and that's not just from MDs and stuff like that. Listening to some of the junior recruiters stuff as well, it's just like, that's a bloody good idea. I wish I'd thought of that. There's another guy as well who I wouldn't call a mentor, but he's someone who was the most useful training to me. Was a guy by the name of James Bass. I don't know if you've ever come across him in your career, but he's got a company called Bill & Bass. They're recruitment trainers, and but generally, I've found that what I've learned from him has been vital, and I think that he's very much on the job training kind of person. So, but he'll whilst he's training you and whilst you're learning from him, he'll kind of change it to what you're doing as well. So if he'll see me doing something that he liked the look of, he would then incorporate in other stuff that he's doing. And I think understanding that everyone you work for is slightly different, and make sure you're helping motivate them in all the right ways. Communication.
Yeah. And you can learn something from everybody.
You definitely can. Yeah. At whatever level.
Yeah. Jim, this has been really great. Thank you so much. I think that hopefully we've opened people's eyes to, asset management and what might be behind the curtain. And so I'd really like to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all of your wisdom. Any final words of support or encouragement that you want to share with the audience?
Do you know what? Keep at it. Is the best one that I can do. If you want to get into asset management, you will get into it. You might not get in as a fund manager, you might not get in as a salesperson, you might not get into it as an investor relations person to start off with. But if you really want to get into this industry, you will be able to get into it. Just don't give up. There's more than one way to do it. And as you said about the tech industry, there's so many different roles inside investment management that there's one for pretty much everybody that wants to do it.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, Jim, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you so much for joining Jim and I today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. If you found this episode valuable, please consider subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help us help you. And if you have any questions, comments or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you, so feel free to reach out. As you go about your week, take a moment to reflect on what you've learned about asset management operations and whether it could be right for you. And if you're hungry for more insights and inspiration, check out our extensive back catalogue for more inspiring conversations. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a fantastic week.